In Germany, the potential invasion of Ukraine leads the Munich Security Conference, an annual event to prevent another war in Europe. Ukraine's president is expected to address the conference today following remarks from Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The U.S. has agreed to sell hundreds of tanks to Poland to bolster NATO forces. Christina Ruffini is traveling with the Secretary of State in Munich. Christina, good morning. President Zelenskyy, I'm told, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
That's okay. Good morning, Michelle. President Zelenskyy arrived behind me just a few moments ago, and before that, the vice president addressed the main ballroom here, a room full of diplomats and security officials, where she told them national borders should not be changed by force. And although Russia says it's ready for talks, its actions do not match its words.
To be clear, you are convinced that President Putin is going to invade Ukraine. Is that what you just said a few moments ago?
Yes, I did. Yes.
But until the moment he does, President Biden says there is still time for diplomacy.
Make no mistake, if Russia pursues its plans, it will be responsible for a catastrophic and needless war of choice.
Vice President Kamala Harris addressed the annual Munich Security Conference this morning and said Russia is spreading disinformation, lies, and propaganda.
If Russia further invades Ukraine, the United States, together with our allies and partners, will impose significant and unprecedented economic costs.
Yesterday, Harris and Secretary of State Antony Blinken crisscrossed engagements with world leaders.
Countries are standing up for Ukraine and for the principles that are at stake.
The U.S. says it will defend every inch of NATO territory, sending troops to nervous European allies like Poland, where Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin visited yesterday and announced the sale of 250 American-made Abrams tanks.
Whatever path he chooses, the United States and our allies and our partners will be ready.
But President Biden reiterated that America will not be sending its forces into Ukraine to fight Russia, choosing instead to take aim at Moscow's messaging and provide the Ukrainian people with military and diplomatic support.
We're calling out Russia's plans loudly and repeatedly, not because we want a conflict, but because we're doing everything in our power to remove any reason that Russia may give to justify invading Ukraine.
Delegates here seem about split whether it was a good idea for President Zelenskyy to leave Ukraine at this time. Even in private, many American officials advised him against it. Michelle?
So why did President Zelenskyy decide to go to Munich amidst all of the criticism? What does he hope to accomplish in the meetings there?
He hopes to bolster support. I mean, obviously, there is a lot of support for Ukraine here, but the Ukrainians are worried about decisions being made about them without them, right? If you're not in the room, you're not in the room. So he wanted to be here to make sure he knows what's going on and can voice his country's own point of view in all of these really high-level conversations.
Christina, the Europeans, at least publicly, have been far less alarmist about the odds of an invasion than the U.S. has been. Has that changed in the past 24 hours?
It has. There's been a bit of a shift with people I've been talking to. Up until this point, you know, the U.S. and the Europeans were seeing that Russia had the same capability. They agreed on the capability. What they disagreed about was the intent. And now more and more, the Europeans are starting to come around to what you heard from President Biden yesterday. They are believing that President Putin does intend to take this military action at some point, and that point is likely coming in the next couple days.
Christina, we also heard earlier that the president said there still could be a diplomatic solution until there's any type of military action. So twofold there. What can you tell us about any potential diplomatic off-ramp? And we know there's supposed to be a meeting between Secretary Blinken and Sergei Lavrov next week. Is that still going to happen?
That's really the unknown. I mean, they're making plans like it's going to happen, but while those plans are happening, it's always a little bit of a look. If Russia invades, if Russia take military action, President Biden said himself yesterday that will slam the door to diplomacy shut. So look, this event is all about diplomacy. President Biden has said diplomacy can happen until the very last second, but that clock is certainly ticking down. And even though there's a flurry of action here in Munich, it's unclear if any of it is really going to make a difference and stop Russia from doing what the U.S. and European leaders really, really don't want it to do, and that's going into Ukraine.
And one man making the decision there with Putin. Christina Ruffini in Munich. Thank you, Christina.